outside, maybe a little inside. My name is commonality. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the New York Code and Design Academy. And wanted to give thanks to our partners at Motivate Design for hosting this wonderful event tonight. And to our beautiful soundtrack. This week, me too. It's my favorite, obviously. I thought it was going to be the Frozen soundtrack.
That's so 2014.
For those of you who are not familiar with New York Code and Design Academy, we're a school right up the street here on 90 John Street, focused on helping people find careers in tech by training them in areas of web development, front end and back end, and user experience, which is why we're partnering with Motivate Design tonight and in the future as well. Thank you, Mona, and your team for working with us on our first full-time program that we'll be launching in September. It's still a little top secret at the moment, but it won't be a secret for long.
Yeah, no one should say anything.
Yeah. Sean talks a lot after the third beer, so don't talk to him. But when we thought about doing an event on this topic, to no surprise, Motivate Design had, a MGM Studios list of potential topics, and but it took about 3.5 seconds to decide on designers are from Mars and engineers are from Venus. The title alone, but once Jack is through with you, you'll know why it didn't take that long. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jack Cole. He's the Director of Design here at Motivate Design, and you can tell a little bit more about himself.
Thanks, guys. I'm super excited to have everybody here. This is a great space. Thank you, Mona, for supplying it and designing it from the ground up. So yeah, I'm a design director here at Motivate Design. What I always like to say, I'm excited to talk with developers like yourself. I know enough about coding just to be dangerous, so I always just want to kind of always refer to the experts. So, and over my experience, I just love partnering with people, whether it be from one discipline to the next. It's really exciting to be a part of a team, and this is the only sports reference I'm going to make, going to connect to. But when I first started working in the world, in the professional world, I played basketball for years. I played in college and everything, and I went to a job interview. I was pretty green, and I just kept on saying to the interview manager, I'm a team player, I'm a team player, I'm a team player. And they walked away. Like months later, they said, all we knew was that you were a team player. But I really believe in that. I just really think that great things can happen when you have people that kind of combine their different skill sets to do something amazing. So with that, we can kind of go into it. With our designers are from Mars, engineers are from Venus. So first, just about Motivate Design, we're a UX-led design and innovation firm based in New York City. We'll translate your brand concept into engaging customer experiences that create value at every touch point. So we don't necessarily have anybody in your skill set per se working in-house here. We are kind of the user experience arm of that. We have researchers, very brilliant researchers, and super skilled designers that try to take those learnings from discovery to strategy to overall concept, and then hand over and partner with you guys to make it a reality. And something that we were just talking about earlier before we started was getting involved, getting the developers involved early and often. So without getting into it too much, about me. So I'm 16 years as a user experience and design professional. I've worked 10 years working within multidisciplinary in-house design organizations. And then I'm just overall addicted to the rush of kind of just creation, just being artistic, being creative, finding solutions to new problems. And I just want to be a part of something bigger than myself. Again, that's that relationship to the team. And I put this picture up here for a couple reasons. One, because I'm always down to party. If you have a beer, I will show up. The other thing is just, I don't want to act like I'm smarter than anybody else in this room. I act like an idiot sometimes too, and I come into any engagement being humble and just wanting to learn and exchange good ideas and come up with good solutions. And we were kind of talking about it, saying like, how are we going to resolve this? And I just said, it's like, designers are from Mars, developers or engineers are from Venus. And Mona said, that's a blog post. And I was like, oh man, I just signed up, I volunteered myself for this. So Mona and Sean have been, kind of warned me for a long time about kind of having this talk. And, although, I was joking around about this, and it is kind of a cheesy thing, when I looked at this, this title and kind of went and did a little bit of research, just a little bit, just looking at this book is over 20 years old. It's sold more than 50 million copies. It was the highest ranked work of nonfiction in the 1990s. And then, it spent 121 weeks on the bestseller list. And, I think the reason why it relates to everyone is because, relationships don't necessarily have to be between, a man and a woman. It can be between a designer and a developer, or a designer and a researcher, or an employee and a boss, or brother and a sister. John Gray, who wrote this, he says, I cover all the basics to make any relationship easier, to make any relationship more successful, and to improve communications so that you can get to what you want in a relationship. And I think ultimately that's what we're trying to do in our everyday lives, is just kind of work together and just try and kind of make ourselves better. So the problem, why can't we all just get along? Here's the issue that we have. The opportunity is, at our best, we as designers and development engineers can come together in order to do amazing things. But many from the two disciplines don't see eye to eye, causing friction and unnecessary roadblocks that can prevent your success. And I see it, and I've experienced it plenty of times, where there's just no communication, or whatever problems arisen. There's just, people are not thinking beyond the first solution. They're just kind of going with what they know. It's just rote for them. They're just going through the process. What I'm going to talk about tonight is just some of the experiences that I've had, some of the successes and many, many failures, and then finally, getting to a point where we were successful. And the journey in each one of these cases has been really valuable for me, and it's kind of built momentum for me for the next engagement, and makes me feel really excited to work with anybody new in a project, regardless of who they are or where they come from. So this topic isn't new, and I'm sure, I don't know if anybody here has read any blog posts or articles on the same topic. It's pretty common. How many people have seen or kind of spoken about this in the past? Okay, we got one or a couple. I see a lot of heads nodding. There's a couple. These are just a couple of examples. But if you just Google, designers and developers working together, you'll get a plenitude of these. But I just highlighted 3, and I kind of labeled these in the way that I kind of read them. But one was I call it happiness and magic, where when designers and developers work together, they can make magic happen. Then there's always the kind of the 6 easy steps. Everything's a couple steps away from bliss. But in this article it says if you trust people you work with, you can focus on finishing your own tasks. And then finally, it just makes sense. Designers and developers should work together to create a more complete web project. Of course, all these things are 100% true. But what I gleaned from each one of these things, and I've read in the past, it all kind of makes sense, but it just feels like very general to me. And in my experiences, things got kind of once you kind of get into the weeds, it's like a whole other conversation. Yes, some of these things absolutely work, but how do you actually make it happen? So, we're keeping it real here. Anybody know what this picture is? Anybody? The Gen Xer from the early 90s?
Real World Cast Season 2?
You got it. Remember this story? Remember this story we got? It said when people stop being polite and they start getting real, and the guy said, "True story." Yeah, so that's when I started thinking about this. That's why I was like, this is a true story of my life, going through working with people from all different backgrounds and disciplines and levels of experience when I was just a young buck, just trying to kind of figure things out, and kind of going in and asking questions. And sometimes you get kind of attitude because you're wet behind the ears, or or that I don't know, the latest code or something, and I'm just asking, trying to learn, or vice versa. Oh, you don't know how to do this, or this is a simple design concept. We really have to kind of figure this stuff out together. So, what I gleaned was, many articles and interviews reference common best practices as primary advice. And some of them are, speaking the same language, and that kind of goes back to the premise of this whole talk. The men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We have to all kind of get to the same level, or find the same language in order to kind of get there. But if you kind of go into this just following, checking off the boxes and using quote unquote the lingo, or going in and trying to educate people with the basics from your level of expertise, or going in and saying, hey, we're all in this together, you're going to come off a little bit pompous, or people are going to kind of read you the wrong way. So there's some tact to this, and understanding who you're working with, kind of, and explaining to them who you're about and the way that you work. So here's my personal experience, my story of partnering with software engineers. First story, BlackRock. So I worked at BlackRock for about 6.5 years. Mona Patel is how I got to know her. This was a project. So is anybody familiar with BlackRock before I go into this? Can I see a couple of hands raised? Yes. Yeah. Local presence as well. So some of the challenges, which were many, and these are just a few, but it was a dizzying array of stakeholders at all levels of the company. You had people at middle management, up, the COO. Everybody was pretty much involved in this in some way, shape, or form. The problem was that you really couldn't identify a primary decision maker. There were more out of that. Obviously, from the stakeholders, you had multiple teams. So everything from marketing to IT, development, user experience and design, and digital services. And we were kind of all at odds with these different, with these challenges, the global and regional. But then also there was, I'm sure none of you have kind of encountered any kind of politics in your everyday lives, right? And that was definitely in place, where everybody had a stake, had a skin in the game, as they say, right? Marketing, wanted content front and center. The other part of the finance division wanted their funds as big, make it bigger all the time. From a designer perspective, that's something that will make my eyes twitch. And then you had IT and development, where they were trying to set up the CMS and really make it really fluid, so you could share content from different markets and reuse content if it was just basics, the basics of investing, where it was kind of fairly evergreen. And then the other big issue was location. So we were following the sun, as they say. It's one project with at least 4 different time zones and different languages, and so you had people at different working at different paces, different times, and it could be problematic. Not to be too prejudiced against the people in San Francisco, but they're showing up at 10 o'clock. It's rough, The day's halfway done for us here on the East Coast. And then you had the poor people in India that were, staying late and, getting up early. It was just really, I felt bad for those guys, quite frankly. And then finally, some teams just weren't accustomed to, agile methodology. So, marketing people were like, what the hell's that, right? So we had to kind of figure out a way to, make sure everybody was working together. So, what did I learn out of this experience? There was a couple, but I tried to kind of bucket it here for everyone tonight. Interpersonal skills. With a lot of politics, you have to find ways to really kind of align with people and really kind of find common ground. So, identifying and aligning with primary development partners was crucial. So, I really, if there were 30 people in a meeting, and there were many of those, really trying to make sure that I was working with the people that could really help make things happen. And that's something that I really try to just do. I don't really want to get involved in the he said, she said stuff. I really just want to help get to the end deliverable. Establish a firm user experience and design presence within the project team to assure that development was not the only driver in the decision maker. Sometimes the project would start off with just the development needs in hand first. And certainly that's important, but if we're not thinking about the overall concept and thinking more broadly, that's going to be a problem, down the road. And one of the other examples that I'll show had the same issue where there was no kind of strategic vision, there was no thinking about the end user, and it just proved to be a nightmare, which we had to kind of go back, and it took months to unravel. And we were trying to get in there early and really help establish that. A holistic strategy, just really thinking about not only the internal systems, because we do have all these partners that were publishing this content, trying to figure out ways to leverage different components and the content elements, but also, of course, the end user and what their needs were. And that's difficult when you're working with different regions and they're interested in one investment type versus another, or they have different styles, which I learned a whole lot about. Just the fact that like say in England, that they weren't thinking about retirement at all. If we don't think about retirement in the U.S., they're not thinking about it at all, which was kind of scary. The voluntary involvement in multidisciplinary planning meetings. That's a whole lot of words, but all that means was I was just poking my head in every conversation. I just wanted to get involved. I wanted to make sure that I had a seat at the table and was helping to make art, have the voice of the designer involved, and find ways to collaborate. Again, kind of going back to the interpersonal things, really trying to key into the people that could help push this thing forward. And because once you do that, once you kind of start to align yourself with those people that are kind of cut from the same cloth, that are really just trying to get the job done, everybody eventually will follow. I really believe that. Flexibility. This is a big thing, right? If you are stuck into your process, you're going to be that pain in the ass. So recognizing work schedules, I tried to foster goodwill. So I have no qualms about getting up at 4 in the morning because I'm already up already. I have 2 little kids and they're always waking me up. So I had no problem doing that, just to make sure that that my friends in India or my friends in London, or even those friends in San Francisco that I was just talking about, that we were trying to adapt to everybody's schedule to keep things moving forward, and then anticipating opportunities to over deliver wherever possible. I was trying to just see where we could kind of just introduce new and interesting ways to solve the problem. Things that maybe we hadn't discussed in a meeting, but I said, hey, maybe we should consider this, or delivering a couple more screens just to help describe things a little bit better for my development partners in London or in Mumbai. So those are some of the things that in the aggregate, when you start to kind of put these things together and you have your design team kind of following suit, and then you start to kind of build these these camaraderies with people. Now you start to see things actually taking shape, and once you have that, now you have momentum and you can kind of keep things going and get more buy-in. Everybody okay so far? I know it's hot. So story 2, TD Ameritrade, saving a seat at the table. So I talked about having a seat at the table and getting involved myself. In this case, I was at TD Ameritrade for maybe about six months or so, and the first thing that was posed to me when I interviewed there was, how do you work with developers? And also, what's your process? And it kind of struck me as odd why that was even a question. Because like, how do you work with developers? I said I just treat them like people. It's not like you're aliens or anything. So I just said I always just try to find ways that we can kind of align. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about work. If they're into hang gliding, I'm going to look into hang gliding and just figure out what why they like that, and maybe find alignments about why I like basketball or things like that. So just social things like that help you build some of that. But the project in this case was there was an evolving project where they had their public investor site, and they had done pretty much the main aspects of going through and making an investment and buying the stocks and making the trades, and but they didn't include the profile and kind of setting your preferences aspect. It was like a whole other thing, mostly because it was kind of in a legacy system that they just didn't want to mess with. So my fun task was getting involved in that. So in here we were trying to incorporate the profiles and preferences, aligning those user experiences and infrastructures to be kind of in step with the rest of the TDA domain. Some of the challenges that we saw were, as I mentioned, the legacy back-end infrastructures. So we either had to find ways to sunset that or to revamp them in order to make the improvements that we were being tasked with. There was some issue because the project managers, there just wasn't enough of them. They were being over-leveraged. So a lot of that was causing lags in the progress overall. The development engineers were traditionally accustomed to just kind of getting things in a waterfall almost fashion, just passing it down the line. They would develop and just put it out there. So that was kind of what I walked into. And what I learned in this case was a couple things. One about inclusion, and where I said saving a seat at the table. The developers in this case just either they were never invited or they didn't want to attend any of the early meetings, and I just didn't think that made sense. So we just tried to find ways to bring them in earlier and more often. So we recognize issues with those previous releases being that there was a lack of knowledge share, which I was just talking about before I got up here tonight, that if you let that stuff go, then it's just going to be a big ball of confusion further on down the road. We tried to establish a UX presence in the development department, so just made efforts to engage them through inviting them to meetings, just general technology inquiries. So I would just walk up to any of my partners and just say, hey, like how would you plan to work on this? Even if I had it in my concepts in sketch form, just pen and paper, and just try to work together. Impromptu meetings, just doing that. I would even go to lunch with some of my colleagues just to spend some time, get to know, build some camaraderie. And I really think that human aspect, as I mentioned, just treating people like people and not necessarily in an adversarial aspect, because that's the way it was kind of presented to me. I just really tried to make an extra effort there. Inquire to educate. So I just actively engaged project managers and development partners to understand the back-end environment in order to challenge the team to consider non-traditional solutions. I kind of used, for a little while, I used the excuse, I'm the new guy. So help me help you. And that helped for, that worked for a little while, and then I was just the annoying guy that just kept on coming and tapping on my shoulders. But I have no shame in that. I have some of my friends here in Motivate that do a lot of the same things, so I feel like I'm in the right place. Readily recognizing the wisdom of project team members, welcoming them in open dialogue. They're just really saying, like, listen, I am not the expert in what you do. I want us to share our knowledge and find ways that we can work on this together. Again, putting development at the beginning of the process as part of the design effort, not necessarily the end result. And then transparency. This is where I would try to just be explicit about what I do, explaining the design thinking and approach in random discussions, just encourage sharing. So you kind of see a pattern here where I would either try to pull it out of them, or I would just overshare as much as possible and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Where do you think it could go? And then engage in discussions that way. Over documentation. I just talked about over delivery, and you'll kind of see it a couple times here tonight. I would just do that wherever I thought it needed, and invariably I always felt like that was helpful, and not necessarily doing it for the sake of doing it, but just trying to anticipate places where I thought, oh, this could be a little bit tricky. I'm going to try and document this in a way that helps, or trying to prototype it and then explaining it in those fashions. And then honest estimation of UX deliverables was met with appreciation by all. So if you're going to say you're going to get it to the development team or the project manager by Friday, please get it to them by Friday, if not sooner. Don't wait until Monday. Don't wait until Wednesday. Try and get it there. And if you're not, be explicit about the fact that things get caught up in the process. It's just goodwill. Story 3. This is the story that I just mentioned, coming up in the elevator with Modem. So this is a former client that we continue to have a partnership with, and it is a pretty interesting project where we're working in the mental health field, and it's a pretty amazing engagement for us, where we're trying to use technology to help patients who struggle on a daily basis just live their lives and adopt healthy habits in any way we can. So it involves sensors and a patch and using a smartphone and talking to your doctor. It's a whole lot of moving parts, and you're asking a lot for patients with cognition issues, from schizophrenia to bipolar disorder to severe depression, to do a lot. So the project had started prior to our involvement, and it was kind of quick to development, and with not a whole lot of early thinking, as I mentioned earlier, around the overall experience. And a lot of this was driven because of the fact that they were dealing with the FDA, and they wanted to try and get approval to keep things going. And I see a lot of shaking heads, so I understand the thinking behind it, but it was somewhat of a folly, in my opinion, because it's caused us to course correct, as I have here at the top, for the better part of 10 or 12 months. And we're willing to put in the effort to get it there, because I just really believe that it's going to help change a lot of people's lives. But some of the effort, some of the pain points that we've had related to this project is that it was entirely driven by development, and with very little user experience design considerations, and it just caused for a disjointed experience. And I'm not saying that anybody here tonight isn't thinking about that user experience, but you have a primary responsibility, and if you're not thinking, if you don't have somebody else that's kind of thinking about it more holistically and bringing it kind of more to the forefront, that could be problematic. Partnering with development, the development vendor, who was also previously responsible for the design, caused for a little bit of friction. And I'm saying that lightly because it was difficult, as you can imagine. And then finally, there was this general lack of clarity around the FDA technical design regulations. This is a new thing, so the FDA doesn't even know how to handle this. And then the pharma client doesn't have a whole lot of digital design experience or development experience. So it was a lot of kind of just going out in the great unknown and trying to figure it out. And that's tricky when you're responsible for putting so much documentation to make sure that we're not injuring patients when we're trying to help them in the long run. So it caused a lot of redundancies and inconsistencies in the documentation. There was wasted time, effort, and general confusion in resulting in different project, all kinds of different project meetings. So it was just a whole lot of lag time that was just unfortunately wasted in the earlier efforts. So what I learned, conflict resolution. Just really trying to come in here and find ways to partner with our development partners, even though it was kind of hairy at best. And they were just as frustrated around the fact that the technical documentation was just not clear. So it was causing as much problem from a development standpoint as it was from a design standpoint. So what we try to do is just mine channels of agreement with vendor partners to press the project objectives forward. We included development engineer leads and off-site conceptual workshops. Again, bringing people more into the process, being more inclusive, tapping into everyone's perspective and finding creative solutions to these problems that we had. And it took a while, and there was a lot of unprofessional behavior because of the fact that part of the project was originally in, the entire project was in this other partner's hands, and the design arm was taken away. So naturally, it was like kind of not easy to get through, and there was some just tricky situations to work through. So the other thing that I learned was just perspective and empathy. Number one, remaining focused on why we were here, and the client actually helped us with that too, where we constantly just say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, we're here to help patients. We're not here to prove that one person's right over another, and it helped all of us. So the other part was just recognizing the frustration on the part of the vendor partners who were previously accustomed to working in a certain process, and now we've come in and kind of shaken things up a little bit. So again, finding ways to adapt and be flexible and adjust, was effort by all. But again, bringing people in, asking for their opinions. We also modified wherever we needed to, where we saw things weren't working. Once again, where communication channels. We obviously, as some of you have experienced, I'm sure, things get misinterpreted in emails. So instead of that, we would just go through Skype, instant messaging, simple things that you're like, oh, of course. But it went a long way in trying to bridge the gap of understanding from one weekly meeting to the next, or this different scrums. So the other part was accuracy. As I mentioned, the FDA requirements have been something that we have to pay close attention to. There was a lot of unique documentation demands. So we had to design a fluid specifications process that was clear and explicit and met the needs of what the client's the historical tracking system was supposed to be doing, but also so that we could also have easy and fluid change management, that we were able to recognize that there was an adjustment that needed to be made, quickly make those changes and give them back to the developers in a timely manner. And then also just clarifying design concepts as explicitly as possible, so that there was no reason for the development team to have a whole lot of confusion, and really worked hard at that. And I'm going to tip my cap to Christo, who was kind of leading the charge on that front. So with those three stories, kind of move into the things that I think are really helpful. Some of these examples, kind of highlighting things that you could read in a blog post, things that I've talked about around inclusion and being adaptive to the situations. But the biggest thing that I feel like is, we just recently, Motivate Design went through a process of just reevaluation of who we are and what we think is important. And if there's kind of the Greek proverb of some sort, know thyself. If you know yourself first, then you're able to kind of work better with other people. So I think it was really helpful for us, and I'm really proud of it because we worked together as a team on this, and I felt like this is a good reflection of not just myself, but my entire team. And I would hope that some of this resonates with everybody here tonight. One is we all drive. So living your principles, we all drive. What's that mean? There's no carts and there's no horses. This is a story that, again, referencing Mona, our CEO, where she made a comment in a meeting that really went right into my heart, because I felt like I was personally letting her down, and that we as a collective team was, where she said, I feel like everybody's on board, all in the cart, and I'm the horse just dragging everybody along, which means that, somebody has to take the wheel every once in a while, and that's why we're sitting on a bus here. Every once in a while, one of these guys has to get up and get on that wheel. And we talked about it earlier today in a team meeting where we had a couple people out on vacation, and the responsibilities of those people were kind of nobody knew who was going to uphold it. Well, we had a collective team that just stepped in. They saw a need, they stepped in and did it. And how does this apply to the conversation we're talking about tonight? If there's a lack of understanding, or there's lack of clarity, whether it be from the development side or from the design side, step up and say, hey, listen, I'm seeing something here. It doesn't quite look right. There's a couple. We were talking about pixel resolution and ratios. If the design execution isn't necessarily clear, speak up so that you can work together with your design partner to help kind of get to a process that's a little bit more straightforward and more efficient, so that you can save time, save money, save a lot of frustration and sleepless nights. So this is collective ownership. We're all in this together type of conversation, as I mentioned earlier. So one of our second principle is yes and. So anybody familiar with this term? So from improvisation. And this is a big thing. Over the holidays, we had a improvisational guest speaker who came through and gave us a bunch of different exercises, and it was a lot of fun and pretty hilarious. We have still kind of talking about in our old space where we did an improvisational thing, and somebody brought up the term of the topic of bathrooms, and we only had one bathroom in our other space. And again, I'm going to pick on Christo, but he would he was just like harping, we only have one bathroom, we only have one bathroom, and it was kind of a pain point for Mona. And she was getting really, really mad. But it was a great exercise. It was a great session where it was really aligned with us. Where you see opportunities where you can work together with somebody. It doesn't matter what the discipline is. You start kind of working through ideas, and you say, "That's a great idea. Yes, and how can we add to this? How can we kind of spin that into an even better idea?" So that's kind of where we go. And we talk about building on each other, building on what we do, and over delivery. Again, so how can we? This is great. This is a great concept. How can we take it to the next level? Every time we go through iterative processes. So number 3 is explore, design, reflect, and refine. So this is pretty straightforward for, I think, a lot of people here, and it's the reason why we do this. It's the reason why I love this field is that, I came from a print background, and once you send it to print, that's done. The plate's made, it's out there. To make changes is pretty expensive. That's not to say that you're making adjustments in our field of expertise isn't expensive, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper and quicker. So, really following that process in any way that you can, going through that explorative process, going through the design concepts, going through, thinking about and reflecting, getting feedback not just from internal stakeholders, but from your end users, and then refining those things. And again, doing it as a team in any way that you can, keeping everybody in the loop helps to get to a better end product. So following that process and living that mindset wherever possible. Number 4, deliver excellence. I think this is self-explanatory, but again, it's something that we were just talking about earlier before we got up here tonight. It's trying to find that sweet spot between efficiency and kind of high-end solutions, and just really kind of constantly working at that. So there's new technology constantly coming out. There's different issues or product pushes and things. So finding ways to work together to get to a point where you're working as a well-oiled machine. You're almost kind of in a symbiotic relationship, thinking about, oh, well, this is what my partner needs. This is what I'm expecting from my developer, or my research partner. So therefore, I can start to make these advanced decisions now, and then come back to the team with it. So just being proactive wherever possible, and of course, kick-ass solutions wherever at all times. Last one, and I hope this kind of has been fairly consistent with my talk tonight, is positivity, growth through positive interactions. I'm a big believer of just always being optimistic. I'm the half full guy, always just looking for ways to just make things better, and that's why I love what I do as a designer. Is I'm trying to kind of do positive user experiences at all times. So planting, not fishing. Really trying to. Our philosophy with the way we work is we're not into just trying to go for that big fish, the big names all the time. We really want to build relationships, and that goes through the entire life cycle of a project, or an engagement, actually, I should say. An engagement where you are working really well with the client, you're working really well with your researchers, you're working really well with the admins on the team, whoever it may be. Everybody's involved, everybody feels vested, and it's a really great kind of collaborative situation. The client feels like they're part of it. The development team doesn't feel like they're kind of left with the butt end of the stick to try and kind of get everything together, because the designers kind of sold the pie in the sky and didn't talk to you. Everybody should be involved, and if the designers aren't, that's where, again, where I talked about earlier, engage. If they're not the ones engaging, you engage. And this kind of, the last one is no a-holes. I'm going to say a-holes. It's a PG environment, and that isn't necessarily thinking about, or at least this is the way I took it. This is not about saying like, oh, he's an asshole, she's an asshole. It's thinking inwardly. I don't want to be the asshole. So I want to deliver my end of the bargain and working together, and I want to make sure that I'm giving everybody on my team the best at all times, and I don't want to be that guy. So this is my advice for the real world. First, shameless plug. Our CEO, Modem wrote a book, and it's called Reframe. Shift the way you think, you work, innovate, and think. And I'm kind of half joking, but I just read this twice. I'm making my wife read it. I took it to my parents, my friends, and it's really something, it's a set of tools, and it's a mindset, and I think a lot of what I've been talking about is just a way of thinking and looking at things. And a lot of the things that Mona has in here is really helpful in kind of applying tools for where you kind of get into situations where it can be sticky, like with the pharma client and the development partner, where it's like, can it be any more difficult to get through this meeting? Just reframing your perspective, coming at it with a different mindset. one of the main tenets of the Reframe book and some of the workshops that we do is asking what if. So engaging with your partners, asking what if we did this, what if we did that. But even if you're kind of in a difficult relationship with one of your teammates, it's what if we could do this in a different way? What if I could do this in a different way? Just constantly challenging yourself to think differently. So one of the quotes, one of the many wonderful pearls of wisdom from Mona Patel. Dig deeper into why you can't do something. Usually you can, you just aren't choosing not to. You just are choosing not to. And again, that's kind of looking inwardly, not necessarily constantly pointing at other people and saying, oh, they're the ones that are being the problem. Maybe I can find ways to kind of work around that. And I try to, overall, it sounds like I'm trying to be accommodating wherever possible, and absolutely that's the case. But I also want to say, first and foremost, that you have to kind of hold true to your values as I kind of went through here. Let them know how you work and how you best operate. Finally, my key takeaways, because we all love lists. My first one is, your ego is not your amigo. And I love this. And I'm not going to take credit for it. I was just telling Sean before we started tonight, I was listening to, I don't know if anybody a hip-hop fan here? The Wu-Tang Clan. So I was listening to an interview with the RZA. And he was talking about, they're an amazing group that, they've been 20 years they had this, this amazing run, and they have some great music, and we'll play it later maybe. He was being interviewed, and he said, how do we, kind of get to the level of success that they did? And it was because he said, there's something that we say, it's your ego is not your amigo. They had a crew of somewhere upwards of 10 people, and that's a whole lot of personalities and egos to maintain. So that was kind of a mantra for those guys, and they produced some amazing music that impacted a whole generation. Depending on your perspective, for better or worse, but it was certainly my soundtrack growing up. So walking into an engagement where you think you're the smartest person in the room is a bad start. Be nice and professional, always. I think you just, what's it, the 10 things you learn in kindergarten? This is, I think, basically an embellishment of that. Establish your process. So what I talked to in the slide before, being clear and upfront about how you work, and then identifying how your team members operate sets expectations that don't become surprises later on down the line. So you could work for a big company or a big team or a small team, but really trying to set those ground rules up front as early as possible. So what are the lines of communication? How do you prefer to get your documents, your files? Is it something that's quick and dirty, or do we need to have more specification? Every project is different. Every engagement that we have is different. There is no one size fits all. And I believe that in the projects that we work in and with the team members that we help manage, not every person has a unique set of needs. So, or has a kind of a general set of needs. They're all unique. So we have to kind of identify what those strengths and weaknesses are and where the opportunities are to really kind of play upon those strengths. Development is part of the design. I've kind of talked about that a couple times, but I really believe it. I really want to find out and learn more from every one of you when I start on a project. And considering what is possible is that what if mindset. And I kind of have it later on here too. Really just kind of thinking broadly and then narrowing the focus. Adapt. Be ready and willing to adjust the course of a project, plan, or relationship when things aren't working. You don't necessarily, just because we started here, doesn't mean we have to keep going here. Sometimes you have to kind of zig and zag every once in a while to get to the end goal. Asking what if. Engaging in collaborative ideation with multidisciplinary team members can produce surprising results. And I'm trying to look here. Where's Lois? All right. So Lois is part of our UX hires team. And weekly here at Motivate, we try to do what we call Plus Love, where we go through this what if exercise and we identify a theme or a project. Hey, Lois. So Lois is one of our recruiters at UX Hires. I encourage every one of you to go talk to her. She's got all the connections. And so, when we do these Plus Loves, Lois isn't a classically trained designer or a researcher, or from what I gather. but she's super smart. She's a mother of 3. She's like fully dynamic in engaging people and making good connections between hiring managers and talented people like yourself. And when we go through these plus loves, she comes up with some gems that are just amazing. And I really want to see her do a blog post or some kind of weekly podcast. And the theme that I call it is Lois is talking here, because she always has really great insights and thoughts on all kinds of different things. And you would think, somebody like myself, oh, you're not a designer, you don't know anything. But I really look to her to kind of up the ante at every chance. Living the dream. So I want to end this because I really love what I do, and I hope every one of you, based on your attendance here tonight, love what you do too. So approaching any engagement as your next opportunity to do something amazing with a new team of people that you can share ideas and form leverage things from each other's best attributes is the reason why we're all here, or at least it's supposed to be. So so really make the most of it. And I really appreciate your time and your attention here tonight. So thank you very much.
We'll open the floor to questions.
Absolutely.
I want to start with a question.
Yeah.
So you've obviously worked with multiple different industries, and you work with people who want to work with you, have to work with you, maybe resent working with you, or threatened by you. So what are Jack's top 2 ways of building credibility with people? If you have more than 2, that's great.
So I was training. Sean and I were talking about this earlier, and probably my first skill that I ever learned was following my dad and my grandfather into the bar. I'm an Irish Catholic guy, so I was in a bar at age 8. But really just striking up conversation with people, finding commonalities. We're not all that different, even if you're wired one way or another. In the description for the talk, we were talking about further debunking the myth between left brain and right brain. We're all the same people. We're all trying to kind of do great things. We all have high expectations for ourselves and for the people that we work with. So find ways that you can get there. There's all kinds of ways that you can do that. You just have to be willing to try. So I'm sorry, what was the other part of that?
No, just what are the 2 ways you
so that was first. So if you have a chance, follow your dad at age 8 into a bar and strike up a conversation. I think the other way is just know your craft and know a little bit of your development partner's side of the fence. That's what I try to do. As I joked about in the beginning, I know enough to be dangerous. I don't want to necessarily do your job, and I don't want to critique it in any way that's kind of negative. But I will challenge you, and I want to have a healthy conversation and debate about those things. So in order to do that, I have to continue to hone my skills and understand, why the decision you made to execute it this way versus another way. We're able to have that healthy conversation. So I think we have to get to a level playing field, and it's up to me to do some of that stuff again, thinking inwardly. Yep.
Okay, so I'm wondering if you have any advice on if you were putting together a team for a specific project or task, or a multi-project kind of thing, how you go about determining who's going to work well together, especially if they're coming from different places and you're not hiring with one set.
Yeah, I mean,
Jack, can you repeat the question for everyone else?
Yeah, maybe you can you speak up a little bit?
I'm wondering, if you're putting together a team for a project, how, what are some good ways to sort of get a feel for the people that you're interviewing and how they would work together and, establish a dynamic relationship with different things, especially when maybe, we have a startup, we're looking for people right now, and, there's people are going to have to wear more than one hat, so to speak, especially at first, so I think, I'm just curious if you have any insight on that when they're not necessarily specifically just defined roles up initially, or you have people coming from different places to
I think
come together.
what I would say is in your case it's thinking about what your needs are, and you have a small situation where you're going to need somebody that has a broad set of skills, and it's great if they have one specific true strong set. but you need somebody that's has not only a broad set of skills, but also is willing to do all those things. Some of the dirty work. I come from a family of blue-collar workers, where my dad's a carpenter, my brother's an electrician, and my brother has done everything from crawl through the crawl spaces and come out and just full of soot and dirt to managing a team of 30 electricians. So he's one of those guys that's willing to kind of do anything to help get the job done. So you're looking for people that are wired that way, and the people that are kind of like I am, kind of higher level, that I only do this and I've been doing this way, is probably not your best hire, right? So it's thinking about people that are, and it doesn't necessarily mean age or somebody that's fresh out of school. It's just somebody that's wired in a way that they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to attack it in any way, shape, and form. So more of like kind of a Swiss Army knife than a kind of a ginsu. Yep. Next.
So you talked about knowing your own journey, knowing your own design process,
Yep.
and uploading it. And I was wondering if you can talk about your own journey and establishing that process for yourself.
I think a lot of it, I helped write this, or at least started the draft. So a lot of this is me, and it's been through trial and error. Kind of engaging. When I first started out, and unfortunately followed the stereotype, being kind of redheaded hothead. Just like kind of getting mad, always angry, and why isn't he doing it this way? Or he's a jerk. He won't even look me in the eye. And constantly again, like pointing at other people and saying like, oh, they're the problem. So I eventually have to kind of figure out like that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to get you anywhere. You got to find ways to work around that stuff for problems. And then also living up to your end of the bargain. You're supposed to be the specialist in your field. You better own up to it. You better be able to bring it at every time. Bring your A game, and then also understand the different disciplines and have those conversations. So I hope that some of that kind of explained it there. But the other part was just being open and willing to try new things. So if I've never gone through one process, I say, well, I clearly work this way, but maybe we can kind of meet halfway. Or with the time differences, you're finding ways that it was adapted for everyone. Hold on 1 second. Yep.
Yeah, I'm curious. So the meeting talked about the difference between design thinking and programming thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about kind of general suggestions around working together around issues, but what are the differences in viewing?
I think it's kind of looking at the technical specifications versus designers. At least the way that I approach, and some of my colleagues, is just thinking about what's like just generally possible, not necessarily kind of getting. So sometimes I'm looking way up here, and then other some of my colleagues are the development partners are looking down here. Not that that's like better or worse, because the people that are more technically mindset are thinking, well, that's great that you're thinking, blue sky and everything, but how's it actually going to work? And it's trying to kind of find some balance. If it's 30,000 foot and then 5,000 foot, finding somewhere in that middle range to say, okay, let's funnel these ideas in a way that feels tangible and reachable. And again, the shameless plug, the reframe process. What we do is we start with a multitude of what if ideas, and like sometimes upwards of like 200-300 if we really follow the process. And it's a lot of fun, and we go through kind of rapid rounds of ideation. But that's all fine and well. But what are you going to do with this stuff? It's almost overwhelming when you have a bunch of sticky notes all over the wall. Then we start to kind of go through and really filter down and say, is this easy to execute or is it hard to execute? Does this add a whole lot of value or a little bit of value? So now you start to kind of bring that into something that is actually attainable. So, a lot of times we're trying to go with the relatively easy to execute, but still high value. So this upper left quadrant, that's kind of like a little bit of the sweet spot because we know that we're able to execute. But we don't want to throw away, the upper right quadrant, which is the relatively hard, but still high value in terms of the overall user experience. So working together to try and find ways to get into that spot. And all the other crazy ideas, that was good. It was good kind of like, it was good to kind of get the wheels in motion. And you don't necessarily throw them away right away, but you kind of funnel them into something that where you have a core set. So does that help in terms of working?
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
I'm curious if you had any other kind of differences that you have to overcome between different.
Yeah, I mean, it's defining at the outset. If you want to kind of get into the weeds, it's we're working on an app. It's is it iOS or is it Android? You start just asking those kind of basic questions at the very beginning. Like what's the technology that we're going to use? How what's the ratios and how are we going to kind of come up with concepts that are fluid and can work on multiple platforms. So you kind of identify those things early at the outset as well. That's kind of some of the, when we go through our process, there's the planning and discovery phase. The discovery isn't necessarily just about research, it's discovering where we want to take this and really kind of nailing that down at the outset. So then that way, it kind of talks about the beginning of the process. This is how we work, this is how we want to, this is where we want to go. Defining the goal right away, so then that way, we're not, sometimes it's going to change and that's all right, but at least everybody's on the same page to start. Any other questions?
So you enter a project and your team members have certain expectations of what you're going to do and what you're going to contribute to the project, but you notice some fundamental challenges and some issues within the cross collaboration and the teams that you're working with. How do you speak up about those when you already have like this sort of niche that they've placed you in? And how do you speak up about these problems and try to over-deliver and try to convince people within the project that there needs to be a rework?
Yeah, so again, one of the other tactics that we apply is going through this kind of ideation phase, and it's not just directed towards a specific project, but you can apply it to project engagements that you have, interpersonal things. We get further on down the line, we talk about something that we call allies and ammo. So we have a problem, we have to attack it. I may not necessarily be able to win the team over just by myself, but if I can kind of get people on my side, I've talked about that a little bit, really kind of bringing people that that can align with me and kind of see where I'm trying to go. Now I have more of a kind of collective momentum to kind of bring the team along with me. So now you're leading as a group and not necessarily independently and being kind of that difficult one or something like that. Does that help?
Yes, that's great.
Any other questions? Yep.
You mentioned about design is an iterative process. So for the UI and UX designer from point of view, do they really think any changes in each iterative design can affect too much and developer engineers, cost and overhead of development?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of our designers do have a little bit of a technical background, so that's great because a lot of times somebody like myself who is fairly broad on the technical side can tap into somebody else on my team that is already kind of had that experience or has a little bit more chops. So we're practicing empathy even in the way that we're designing. That's a big part of what we do from a research standpoint when we engage in a project. We're thinking about the end user and having empathy for them, building personas and understanding them implicitly. The same is really the case when we work with our partners. Really having empathy for, am I screwing my developer down the line, right? And I think that's where you're going.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any harm to you because I want to have a beer with you later.
Sometimes I feel like I built the building and I destroyed it.
Exactly. Yeah. And we talked about that. Yeah. So we were talking about the ratios and planning for it. So if I just do it in one aspect but don't consider the others, then that's I'm making more work for you, right?
Yeah.
So from a development standpoint, it's identifying, hey, for the next time, maybe we should talk about how we can plan this better, early and often, to build that out and have a clear understanding what the deliverable is going to be. So in that planning phase, really kind of set that set the stage for that, and then figuring it out. If it doesn't work next time, maybe we tweak it. It's that yes and aspect of it. Okay, this was better, but maybe we can do it a little bit better. And we've been trying to really be good about at the end of any engagement that we have with, project engagements that we have with a client, going back and kind of identifying, where we could do better, what worked, how we can supplement that, how we can spin it and maybe apply it as a standard to our other clients' projects. So we're always thinking about every touch point in the process, not just from what's going out to the end user, but also who's being involved and how we can better improve that. Yep.
Okay, another one.
Yeah.
So, from like you said about learning enough, so that you can have an intelligent conversation with someone from a different discipline, and you don't want to do their job or anything, but you want to understand it. I'm wondering if you have any, general insider advice on from a design/UX perspective, what might be useful to brush up on, so that you can communicate better with the developers, and then maybe if you or anyone has any insight the opposite direction, so the developers maybe understand where the other people are coming.
First step is to go to New York Code and Design. But yeah, I mean, I think I approach everything with humility. I go in there and I just say, listen, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. Let's walk through this a little bit better, so that I can have better understanding. That's the first thing. And then I go away and I try and do some reading, or I ask one of my colleagues that maybe has a little bit more experience. So I try to find any outlet I can to try and really build that out, because I really don't want to go into any engagement thinking that I know everything and know anything more than what is in front of me, so that we can really kind of go at it with true honesty and genuine enthusiasm.
Are there any things that, like, more specifically in terms of programming languages or concepts that you would just always kind of want to know or look into on any given?
Again, every project's kind of different for us, so it kind of varies. Some of our development partners that we've been kind of working with, and we constantly are kind of bringing different teams in just to kind of make sure, number one, that they're a good fit, that they have the same value set as us. But the ones that we actually respond well to are the ones that kind of are able to. If they don't have it necessarily, the core set of skills in house, that they have have outlets to kind of branch out and reach into the other outlets. So it's kind of hard to say this is the one technology that I need to know. But I generally just try to kind of be abreast of what's where things are going, trying to stay on top of the trends. You, and then you. Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned that research is a very important part of UX and UI.
Yep.
What is the research process that you generally follow for an upcoming project?
Yeah, and it kind of follows in line. Like every engagement's a little bit different, and what people need. We just recently had a client that came in, and it's almost like, and this is a lot of what we're starting to see and hear, which is actually exciting for us, is almost like a train-the-trainer type of thing, where we're giving our clients, our partners, the tools to go out and do their own research. So we're giving them, kind of the best practices, the methodologies to go out and do it on their own. Because we don't want to necessarily bleed them dry. We want to build those. We want to plant the seeds. We don't want to necessarily just kind of get the money. That's not what we're about. But then other ones, we're going through a full discovery process. We've started to adopt. Well, we've always really been about it, but we're trying to be more explicit around value centered. So it's not just project to project, or we're not mercenaries. We're a company that really wants to kind of help you build the overall vision for what your brand is. And unfortunately, one of our colleagues who's in San Francisco, he would speak to it a lot better than I would. But he talks about brand with a big B. So we go into it and we want to understand what's your overall goals. How do you want to project your overall brand, not just the look of your logo and the colors, but just how your end users perceive it. So then that gets into a whole other conversation around just understanding the mindset of the end users and what their motivations are, building personas that we then become, that becomes almost like our friends. So then that's then passed along to myself, the design team, and to the client, so that we're now all kind of on the same level playing field, speaking to, when there's different business requirements that are being brought up, and we say that doesn't feel right based on what we know about our users. One concept that we want to go down isn't necessarily going to be the best way, because it just feels kind of contrary to what we've learned and defined.
Time for one more question.
Yep.
Can you speak logistically about how your designers and developers work? So are they meeting the technicians in office space? Are they offsite?
Yeah.
How frequently do they communicate? At what points during the project do they communicate?
Yeah, and certainly. So some of my past experiences where I was talking about where I worked at BlackRock, it was multinational. I had a team I had 4 designers in Princeton. I had a couple designers in San Francisco. I had another 4 designers in London, and we had developers in London and Mumbai and Kurgan and San Francisco. So it was all over the place. So logistically, it was just something that we had to manage and work around. And thankfully for technology, we were talking about ADP and kind of the sick environment that they have. We didn't quite have like all the bells and whistles, but we had enough to really kind of make it work. The way that we work here, it's kind of any way that we can do it. I live in New Jersey. I work in the office a couple days a week. I try to work from home a couple other days so I can stay married and see my children. We also have clients that are all over the place. Some of our other colleagues work remotely. So you just have to make an invested effort to connect in any way that is. It's a phone call, it's a video conference, it's carrier pigeon, whatever it may be. Just keep everybody connected. Right? So that's the way that we do it. And you'll read some of those blog posts and different articles, and they'll say, the ideal situation is to sit right next to the developer. And that would be great. I want to sit right next to you and work together on it. But it's sometimes not always the case. We partner with developers, whether they be another agency, like the other example that I put out there, or it's a company that already has their own development team. So if I can embed myself with them, for a week or a couple of days, great, because we're going to form a great bond, because I'm going to find a way to do that. Other times it's just me being persistent, making sure that we are one. We are operating from a similar mindset in order to get to that job, that end job goal. Does that help?
All right. Well, thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to seeing you at future events.
There was one other thing I forgot. We have a whole lot of open desk space, so if you guys are ever looking to, if you need room to work, you need a quiet space, you see all these different rooms, talk to, there's a guy in a yellow shirt with glasses, so talk to him if you're ever interested.
Forget your name, sorry. Okay, yours is the general.